what was just the general nature of your work at T&H?
I have served in leadership capacity at the tribe a number of years ago.
And what were your experiences of harm?
I think humiliation, retaliation, similar to what I've been reading, political backlash for speaking my mind, or I guess going against the grain.
And when we talked earlier, you mentioned part of that harm was rumors being made up about you within the workplace.
Yes. There were a few rumors that were shared amongst delegates and at tribal corporations and within Central Council about untrue statements that affected my integrity and basically pushed me to leave tribal service.
How did that feel to be pushed out, and how did that affect you professionally and personally?
It affected me very negatively. It felt like I had to rebuild my professional path, and thankfully I had the wherewithal to actually grow past all of that, although it's taken over several years to get to where I am now. Personally, I struggled mentally, and it's affected my family and how I can support my family. Having to move away from all of it.
Were you able to report any of those experiences to anyone within the tribe, and did anything happen because of that?
I did report, except I don't think it was ever documented. And I was also, because of my previous experience, was afraid to report. And it just never really went anywhere. I didn't feel supported by anyone. And those that wanted to support me were scared of the backlash as well.
What could be done to repair the harms and further your healing?
I honestly think we need new leadership with good integrity, with fairness, with openness. Someone willing to step up and continue the healing that our people need.
And how should a review be conducted? Should there be independent investigators?
Yes, I believe, given what's been shared already with the history of both Richard and now the acting president, Jacqueline. I don't think it's going to be fair. And or it's going to be swept under the rug. That's my fear. And we'll just continue operating as we have been in fear.
Is there anything you would like to say to the fellow victim survivors of these harms within the tribal government?
Unfortunately, my experience outside of the tribe was better. It can be better, and you're not alone. Reach out to one of us, or, I think there's somehow we can stand together safely. But I also hope that others hear these stories and support us, kind of like you have. But change does need to happen.
And lastly, is there anything you would want to say to your fellow tribal citizens?
I think outwardly things look great. Check in with your fellow, with those people that serve your tribe. We're not all bad, and we're doing the best we can.
What was the general nature of your work at Tlingit and Haida? And did you have to interact with the administration and the executive council?
My position at Tlingit and Haida was administrative support. So it was sort of an entry-level role. I did have to interact with leadership, the executive council, as well as the president, who at the time was Richard Peterson.
And did you feel safe around President Peterson?
No, I felt very unsafe around President Peterson. I felt unsafe because when I started working there, I noticed that he would pull me into conversations about other women who have worked there or who were employed there. Two of the women that he was speaking about, he was telling me that they had slept with the former president, and he was implying that they would possibly try to sleep with him. And I felt uncomfortable in that conversation because he was in a power position, and the two women that he was speaking about were reputable women who I did not feel were capable of that. And it made me feel like I couldn't trust him and that I would possibly be next. I also heard him after one meeting with a Nana shareholder. He called her a disgusting cow, and I asked him why, and he said she didn't have any grace. She wasn't graceful. And comments like that were made quite often. And at the time, he was also engaged in he was going after one of the women that worked there. In fact, he ended up terminating her, but not before he started grooming the employees around him, and creating this narrative about her, that cast her in a really nasty light, and also accused her of some sexual actions with another male. So those things made me feel really unsafe. And at one point, he had made a comment about her. The reason he was firing her was because she wasn't loyal, and that he expected 100% loyalty. This was a conversation that he had with me, and it made me feel very, very afraid for myself. What did loyalty look like to him? And what was he expecting me to do, to be complacent while he was behaving like this? That seemed to be what he was expecting.
And did you have your own experiences of harm?
I had my own experiences with harm. He went and told several coworkers that I was trying to engage him sexually in the workplace. None of that was true. Those lies continued for years. I heard it as recent as last year. He was telling people that I had tried to engage with him. This wasn't true, and the things that he was accusing me of were deplorable, and I never felt like safe in a room after that when I worked there, because I knew he had spread this around, and I did not last long there. I left. I could no longer take these types of interactions. I didn't support it, and it was very damaging to me. It made me feel uncomfortable, afraid, intimidated, and even bullied.
Was there anyone you were able to report that to?
No, I never felt comfortable going forward, because the way that he positioned himself, he made it known that the people that were there in positions that I could have reported to were not only his coworkers, but his close friends. And I didn't feel like I would be, like it would be productive. I felt like I would be re-traumatized. I didn't have faith in that system working, and I still don't, because I've seen and heard other women and men who have been harassed and bullied by him, and nothing has happened since. And so at the time, I was too afraid to get re-traumatized by that organization. So I left, and that was how I handled it at the time.
So there's no safe avenue for victims to report harms happening there.
And
no. And at the time, there was only one or two people in the HR office, and since I had seen the way that he had fired the other woman I worked with, I didn't feel safe at all reporting anything, because I feel that employee was wrongfully terminated. Although Alaska is an at-will state, she didn't do anything to bring that upon herself.
With the the current events, how do you think a review should be conducted? Should there be independent investigators?
I think there should be independent investigators and surveys done that are anonymous somehow within the organization as well, because I have heard from current employees that they're terrified. The letter that Jackie Haida put out was encouraging the culture of silence. Do not post about this, do not talk about this. And so I think it sends a message that he will be protected, and it's best that you don't say anything. An outside investigation should happen. These allegations are serious. Even the letter that he used his power to try to prevent somebody from gaining employment elsewhere, that's somebody's livelihood. That's how that person gets housing, food, and shelter. You know, those are some very, to take somebody's livelihood in your hands in that manner, it's no small thing, and that's not the first time that he has done that. I've heard of other situations where he has used his power to try to destroy people's livelihoods, and they're still too afraid to come forward. So it's not just women he goes after, it's men too.
What could be done to repair the harms and further your healing?
I think that having him out of that role, out of the position of power where he is allowed to continue to abuse people would be a step in the right direction. And for an apology to be issued to the people that have been harmed, and also to the current tribal members that they oversee. Positions of power and leadership are there to serve and protect their tribal members and the larger Native community as well. I believe as tribes work together, especially in times like this, and I think, as Native people, conversation needs to be had about what our values are, and that we don't need to operate in these toxic circles of power where people can easily abuse it. And a leader in power should not be lying or having sexual discussions with other employees. It's a total lack of confidence in leadership at this point, not just for me, but for so many others.
Do you have a message for other victim survivors?
For other victims and survivors, no matter where things end up with this, he changed people's lives. He changed your lives when he chose to abuse his power, his title, his authority. And for years, he's gotten away with it. No matter what happens, if they choose to protect him and cover this up, his life is also changed now, not just yours. And change does not always happen overnight, but the more people speak up and realize that there is so much support out there from other tribal leaders, directors, corporation CEOs, housing authority CEOs and directors in leadership, statewide from the Senate and the legislature, there is support, and people people already have heard stories about the abuse of power when it comes to Richard Peterson and others like him. And it's only a matter of time before we, as Native people, gather together like we did historically, and we decide that we have better values, and we make changes, and this is how change happens. And to all the victims that have been impacted by this, you matter. You deserve to do your jobs. You deserve to have your integrity and your safety intact while you do it. And what he did was wrong, and that shame that you felt silenced by is rightfully placed right now in the spotlight on him. Let him have it back. It's his to carry.
And lastly, do you have a message for other tribal citizens?
For other tribal citizens, it's time that we as Native people start living the values that we claim that we have. We claim a moral high ground, and we demand so much out of other organizations, and for them to respect our values. And we really have to get real about what our values are, and whether or not they're just buzzwords, or whether or not we're willing to have the courage to dismantle current systems that are not working, and implement systems that do work, because I have seen other Native organizations with healthy work cultures. And so there is hope for us all to be able to recreate this story so that our children and our grandchildren have better, and that when they go to work, they're safe, and they're not pushing other people down. They're lifting people up. There's enough for us all. And power is a huge, tremendous responsibility, and we need to reinstate a sense of sacredness back to that. Our leaders historically gained status through giving. It was how much they gave that gained them the status of a leader or a chief, and they often gave to the point of destitution. We need to go back to our traditional values, and we need to live them instead of using them like buzzwords. And it is possible. We can do this.